I want to call the Monday, November 13th Township Committee meeting to order. If you could stand for the flag salute. Art.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rita.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law by posting a notice of this meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building and by publication in the Press of Atlantic City on January 9, 2017, and the Atlantic County Record on January 11, 2017. Mr. Gishard?
Present.
Mrs. Link?
Here.
Mr. Schenker?
Here.
Mr. Silva?
Here.
And Mayor Kurtz.
Here. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for private reflection and ask for you to keep in your thoughts Frank and Heather Tomasello and the Tomasello family. Frank lost his father recently. And we have a presentation. I'm going to ask, let's see here, we have it right down here. Jake, I think he's sitting in the front row. Jake, can you come up to the microphone up here, and right in the front here, and you just give your name, and we'd like to hear about your project.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. My name is Jake Burnett, and I am a resident of Mays Landing. Tonight, I will be proposing to you a new raised flower bed for the Underhill Park football scoreboard. I am a Life Scout in the Boy Scouts of America in Troop 55 of Summers Point. I am also a freshman in the Engineering Magnet program at Cedar Creek High School. About 1 month ago, I contacted our township with the purpose of hopefully finding a project that the township needed and one I can do as my Eagle Scout project. I was immediately put in touch with Mr. Brett Knoll, Director of Public Works, who informed me that he may have 2 such projects that could be done. When he spoke about redoing the current rotten, falling apart wooden raised flower bed surrounding the football scoreboard, I knew this would be the project I would like to tackle. I chose this particular project as it met most of the criteria that I had in mind to accomplish. First, it is a project that is in my hometown, so my community would benefit from it. Second, the project is at Underhill Park, a place where I played 6 years in baseball. Third, this is the type of project that will last for decades, and not only is it one I could be proud of, but one which the community will immediately see the benefits of. As I reviewed my options for my Eagle Scout project, I knew that this raised flower bed would be difficult to accomplish and challenging to lead others, as I know very little about building a brick flower bed. I put in place a plan, and I have begun working toward the goal. Mr. Knoll and I have agreed to begin the process to see where it would lead us. My first need was to partner with an experienced landscaper who is an expert in this field. My goal was to find a landscaper that not only wanted to partner with me on this project, but also one who resides in Mays Landing. I thought it would give me help and the project the most, as the landscaper would also take pride in giving back to our community. After numerous calls and some who wanted to partner with me, I chose Mr. Mark Schutz of Schutz Landscaping. Mr. Knoll then gave me the parameters of what the township would want, and Mr. Schutz and I set it in motion. We've determined that the project would require at least 96 man-hours. Next, I met with Mr. Brian Kurtz, the MLAA president, and Mr. Patrick Milliken, the football commissioner, to discuss this project and see if they had any other ideas or wanted something different. They were both positive, excited for the project to take place, and offered me their assistance if needed. I'm here tonight to ask for the approval of this committee to allow us to build and work on this project for our community. With your approval and the approval of the Boy Scouts of America, we would like to begin as soon as possible. If you have any questions, or if I may clarify anything I have said more completely, please ask me and I will do my best to provide you answers. I'd like to thank you for your time and consideration. I would also like to thank Mr. Knoll and Mr. Schutz for having the belief in me and my ability to make this project a reality.
Jake, when do you anticipate beginning the project?
We anticipate actually carrying it out around March,
March?
because the ground would freeze.
Jake?
After frost. How much will it cost?
At this time, we have not figured out the material costs yet. This will depend greatly on what type of brick or stretcher we will use. Also with this project, I'm trying to have donations or to use fundraising as a vehicle for reducing material costs. In fact, today I was informed that Done Right Sand and Gravel Company of Vineland, New Jersey, they will donate the 1 ton of sand and 4 tons of modified stone needed for my project. And I am looking for more partners on this project just like this.
Jake, I guess you will have some Boy Scouts helping you. Who else would be providing the 96 hours of help that you mentioned are needed?
I plan to have my fellow troop members help me out on this, and we're going to be rotating people so that nobody gets exhausted, because we're going to be doing this over the course of a couple weekends.
Jake, would you hold the last page of your project and show the audience how nice that is, what you want to do? Can you at least show it to them? I think it's really great.
Have you raised any money yet, Jake?
Not yet.
Well, I'm gonna be the first one then. On behalf of my law firm, if you call me and you give me your information, I will send you a check for $300.
Thank you.
Wow,
Wow.
that's great.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I approve of this project. I make a recommendation that we approve it.
okay. We have
I'll second.
a motion and a second to approve this project. It's great what you've presented to us tonight, and it's great to see your initiative. You've really done your homework. So I'll ask for, we have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion passes. Congratulations. We're looking forward to you doing this project. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank
luck,
you for
Jake.
coming in.
Good luck, Jake.
All right, you're a good presenter, Jake.
Congratulations.
Good luck, young fella. Proud to be part of it.
Yeah, good luck to you.
Next, we have item 1, addition and deletion of late agenda items to be considered for tonight's action.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Against? Abstain. 2, early public comment on agenda items, excluding items listed for a public hearing. Mike?
Yes, we have Fran Saravia. Yes. 3A.
Come on up, Fran.
Good
Hi.
evening. Thanks for having me up to talk to
Problem.
you. I wanted to talk about the Complete Streets policy that you are going to be talking about later. I was here 2 weeks ago when you were discussing it, but unfortunately I had to leave. I had a family emergency. But what I wanted to say was that, and I don't know if this was touched on because I left, but the Complete Streets policy is the beginning of a more broad project that the Green Team wants to work on. And what that is a bicycle and pedestrian safety program. So, just a little bit of background. I'm sure you guys know this, but the Sustainable Jersey is a really respectable nonprofit organization here in the state. They are a group of hardworking, energetic people from our industries, our utilities, and our universities. And they put together actions that hold municipalities accountable. Starting with the complete street, making sure that we're not just a rogue organization that's going off on our own, but are working together with our planning board and with our council. No, sorry, committee. I do that all the time. My apologies. But the upside of that is that the projects that come through Sustainable Jersey are extremely effective. They make an amazing impact on the communities that they've been completed in. And so I wanted to let you know that this complete street policy has all kinds of good reasons to adopt it, but mostly because it's the beginning of a broader project that the Green Team would like to work on. I just want to say, lastly, that I know that people in our town do a great job, but people are getting hit and killed on our roads, and it's, I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think it's because the people driving around in our town or driving through our town don't have the awareness that there are other people on the road. And so my friend, Michael Dare Gentile, died. He lost his life because he was riding his bicycle to work. He was such a community member. I just can't even begin to tell you all the things, but he was a teacher and a mentor, and we lost him because people on our roads aren't watching. I drive around Philadelphia. I know there's bicycles on the road because it's pretty clear. And that was the result of grassroots things like we're trying to do. And Complete Streets is the beginning of that. So, I guess that's it. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. You know, Mayor, you were hit in front of your flower shop. So you understand what I'm talking about, right?
I remember.
I remember too. I was really upset. And you know, it's all about me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Mike?
Susan and Michael Lazarchek.
Come on up, Susan, or Michael.
I'm Michael.
He's going to speak for you. Okay. Oh, all right. He's first.
I'm first. Okay. I'm here because my wife is on your green team, and she's upset. Because it doesn't seem to be enough support for the complete streets. Now, this is the 21st century. Communication is worldwide. And people are talking about sustainability. And what is sustainability? It's about using our resources wisely. Our resources for the people who live in our community, for the businesses that operate in our community, and for the environment where we live. Using our resources wisely, sustainably. That's what it's all about. It's about people working together and communicating and trying to make this a better place to support all of us. That's what sustainability is. So you have a sustainability project in the state of New Jersey, which she said is respectable, to say the least. And you have a green team, which you allowed to exist, and these people volunteer their time to get together, to study, to look at everything, to give you information as a township committee. That's what they do. They're volunteers. Now, I understand in the Mays Landing neighborhood plan, it actually says that there's a commitment in the plan for to look at complete streets and include it. It's in the plan. So this is a non-binding resolution. It really says, it looks to me like it's a commitment to have all the people work together. Which people? Which people do you want to work together? This means that every transportation project will make the street network better and safer for drivers, transit users, pedestrians, bicyclists, making your town a better place to live. This is just, if you're going to move in this direction and people are going to work together and communicate, it's going to be a better place for everybody. That's what it sounds like to me as I start to look at this stuff. And I'm not an expert. I just started to read this stuff recently. The green team gets points. So that's why they're interested. They want to earn points so that, because if you get enough points, all of a sudden money can come into your community. There are places where money can come in to help you do things. If you're worried about spending money, this is a way to bring money in. So, as I look at it, that's what I see. So, I just hope that you vote to support sustainability because I think it's really important. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comments. Next.
Susan Lazarchik and co-chair with Fran of the Green Team.
Hi, Susan.
Hi. I'm just here to support the resolution, the non-binding resolution. And just, there's, again, we're trying to do sustainable New Jersey. Our points, Mr. Gouchard didn't realize our points, even though we've had this bronze certification, which has been really nice, our points expire. So we have, some of them we've redone, but we've lost 130 points so far. So we're not really certified anymore. So we're continuing what to do. We have a small green team. We think it's a good certification. It's worthwhile. And, again, sustainability is important. But as far as, there's, 2017 Complete Streets Design Guide. I know resolutions can be different. The Green Team certainly is willing to support you guys to do this, whatever that looks like. I pulled some information from Department of Transportation. There's 8 counties and 138 municipalities in the state that have these policies. And it's just, complete streets improve safety for, again, what my husband said, pedestrians, cyclists, children, older citizens, non-drivers, and it's just taken into account. When I did some training a few years ago with Sustainable Jersey and Jamie Cloud, who has the Cloud Institute for Education, one of the women who works with Sustainable Jersey, Samantha McGraw, was saying when she went to college in Colorado, she loved riding her bicycle, and now she's in New Jersey, and she was looking to live in a municipality where it was bicycle friendly. So, bicycle friendly communities are important and they make sense. And some people look at that, and Mays Landing and Hamilton Township really isn't. It's not. So I just think it makes sense for our forward progress, for our children, for your grandchildren, that we take this into account. It's non-binding, like Patrick said at the last meeting. And I know, you have said that, well, we're already doing that. But I just think it's a positive step that makes sense. And we're here, we'll work with you. We'd love to work with you because we kind of feel like we're this excluded little group that you kind of tolerate. And we think that what we have to do is important and beneficial.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else, Mike?
No, I think they signed up twice. Yeah, okay. That's all.
Nothing else on there? We get a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Against, abstain. Actually, it's good that we had the public comment at this point because the next thing on the agenda is the Complete Streets policy. I would just like to make a few comments myself before we go on with this. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind how important the Green Team is to our township. All the committee members know that. I've sat in on meetings early on with the Green Team, and I believe what they do is very important. Keep in mind that this Safe Streets policy came up, and it was sent to the planning board. It was sent back from the planning board to the committee. It was again sent back from the committee to the planning board, and now it sits before us again. There's a couple inconsistencies that in my mind I have to have squared away before I can vote positively on this. Some of them are, I heard a lot about page 59. Page 59, if you read the top of it, says adopt a complete streets policy for Mays Landing. Yet the resolution that's before us tonight is asking for a resolution for a safe, complete streets policy in the entire township. And that's an inconsistency between what was actually in the page 59 and what the resolution is asking for tonight. At the planning board, several issues came up, but just a few issues that came up at the planning board level were that in the agreement, and I look at a lot of agreements, come across my desk all the time, and there's a difference between whether you're going to think about doing something or it's just guidelines, or throughout the whole content of the agreement of the complete streets policy, it uses the word shall. Shall means you will comply. You shall do this, you shall comply with this, you shall follow this policy. I have an issue with that. Also, it was brought up by our planning board solicitor that there could be an issue down the road because what you're doing, even though it's just guidelines, the use of the word shall makes it sound a little more than just guidelines. If you adopt this policy and down the road, or no, worse, if you don't adopt this policy and down the road you present yourself with a liability because someone decides that something you did wouldn't have happened, or if you would have adopted those guidelines. And I think that presents an issue that could create some liability. But all these things are issues that even the gentleman that our committeeman Rodney Gishard had come into the meeting didn't address those items. Some of them weren't even known at that time, this is why we didn't ask the question. But now they are out there. And also I'd like to call on our administrator, Mike Jacobs, to share a few points on this that we found in research.
Yeah, really my comments would echo partly what you said, Mayor. It's being referred to as a non-binding resolution, but this resolution has shall all through it. I mean, in other words, if you adopt it, I have to do it. I have to send it to the engineer and have him evaluate every road that comes through for repaving to see whether or not it's 20% of the cost. In other words, to do a bicycle improvement or a shoulder improvement. These things are, when you say, I don't know, not binding only to the point that you could vote it down again tomorrow because it's only a resolution. But there is effect of this. This thing does have effect if you adopt it. Things you have to do. Now, maybe there's a different form of resolution than the one that we have here, but this one does say shall throughout it. And
what about the rest, the other?
Well, when you send this to the engineer, there would be additional engineering costs as far as evaluating the roads. Now, you may not do the roads if it's 20% more it adds to the cost, but there would be an expense to it. So I just want to make sure I'm not entering.
That's on the township for our roads program.
Yes, and on new construction for developers.
What about our planning board level? In other words, at the planning board, when applicants come in, are we going to be in a position that they're obligated to be involved with those decisions?
It says bicycle and pedestrian ways shall be established in new construction and reconstruction projects unless one or more of the following conditions are met. And that's that bicyclists are not allowed on the road, or it increases the cost by 20%, or where it's sparse population. So their new developments would be impacted by it as well. So at the planning board, they would see.
So at a planning board level, what this could do, I didn't say will do, but I said could do, is increase the engineering costs for the applicants that are coming before us to comply with these items in here that are stated shall do. So there is a thought process that I believe still needs to be dealt with. Kevin, do you have any feelings on this?
I do. You bring up some really key points. Anytime in traffic control device design, in highway design, anytime the regulatory framework uses the word shall, it's mandatory. And that means that it is incorporated into a review at a planning board level. It's incorporated into a design at a design level. That means the road programs going forward would need to incorporate, at least to the extent that was feasible within the budget, incorporate language that makes it mandatory to incorporate bike and other pedestrian and other access to make a complete street. I think in addition, the fact is that when a planning board application comes before the board and there is a policy, there is only a limit to which the planning board can make it mandatory that an applicant comply with that policy, because if it's not reflected in the zoning ordinance, the applicant will not have to comply with that policy, and the township will really be in conflict with its own review process, requiring an applicant to do something the applicant's not required to do by ordinance. And so the township is put in really an untenable position of identifying a need for a complete street by subject to the policy that the township adopted, and then not having the teeth to be able to enforce that with any kind of zoning ordinance, or the township would have to go through the process of amending its zoning ordinance, which in and of itself would be a very long-term, time-consuming, detailed process of identifying every area in the ordinance in which a complete street policy would be implemented or injected or inserted into that part of the ordinance to make that consistent with this policy. So I think it's a long-term benefit to the township. It's certainly it's in the township's long-term interest to do so, but I think you have to be very careful about what steps are implemented and how they're implemented over the course of time. And I haven't seen this policy, but I can tell you that I would be concerned as well. Just hearing the language of shall in a policy like that creates mandatory action that the township may not be prepared to undertake.
Thanks, Kevin.
I get a chance here?
Sure, Rodney, go right ahead.
All right. First of all, I'd like to start out just indicating what this is, because there seemed to be some confusion about it. This is a resolution, and a resolution is non-binding. That is, it's up to, we can take or not take what we want in this resolution. The resolution says to adopt a complete streets policy that acknowledges and implements the concept that streets should be designed, built, and retrofitted for all users, motor vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists, transit users, and people with disabilities. The township recognizes that this policy must be flexible and that all streets are different and user needs must be balanced and fit into the concepts of the community. And this is something which I think most of us in the community would concur with. Just by way of background, over the decades, actually, most probably of our transportation projects are funded by the Department of Transportation. Beginning in the 70s and on, there were complaints by people that the policies took into account the automobile, but did not adequately take into account pedestrians, handicapped people, bicyclists, school kids, and other users of the system. In about 2003, I believe it was, there was a collection of groups that got together, AARP, disabilities, bicycle groups, and others, to form a coalition. I think they call it the National Coalition of something. National Coalition of Streets. And they began working on guidelines that could be used for planning streets and communities across the country. In 2005? Anyway, in 2009, the New Jersey Department of Transportation, and I have the reference right here, adopted this as a policy. We in the, and I was exposed to this by being on the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization and by seeing being involved with members of other counties here and communities. And as was mentioned, I thought the figure was 167 municipalities have adopted this. And throughout the country, well over 1,200 have adopted these policies. The questions that you mentioned that came up at the meeting, that was the reason we asked the transportation specialist to come here for our last meeting, and he was supposed to address those questions, and I thought he did. As was pointed out, this is not binding. The judgment is up to us, and if you look in the policy, there are all kinds of ways out. It talks about the cost of accommodations exceeding disproportionate cost of the project of more than 20%. It talks about sparse population. That would be the rest of the township. And by the way, we apply this where we want to. Obviously, you're not going to apply something like this out in Weymouth or someplace where there's hardly any traffic, so it's a matter of judgment, and the judgment is the township's. It says also that exceptions to this policy are permitted and are contingent upon the presence of certain safety concerns and approval by the township/planning board engineer prior to granting such exceptions. There are plenty of ways out. This is not intended to tie the hands of the planning committee at all. It's intended to provide good guidelines to use in designing streets. Now, it has been mentioned that we've had deaths and we've had certainly many accidents within this township. Using complete streets guidelines as one of our tools, as one of the tools of the planning board and of the township to help design streets is a positive and might very well help reduce the accidents that we've had. We talked about the green team. Certainly the green team is part of this, but the reason I'm suggesting this is because it makes good sense. It's as a community is interested in the welfare of all of its people, the cyclists, the pedestrians, and the rest, it makes good sense to adopt the policies that are a result of a long time experience and provide good engineering. That's the principal reason for adopting it. And that's why I'm suggesting it. I'm really a little bit surprised at the reaction that we've gotten to it.
Well, thank you for your
Kevin,
comments.
when you do an engineering project on streets, you use the AASHTO guidelines, right?
We do.
You do, and aren't they concerned with the design and safety of pedestrians?
To an extent. AASHTO has published numerous research papers on complete streets. What they have not done is they have not adopted it into what they call the Bible or the Green Book or the design manual, which is the essential design guide for engineers designing any type of street. Anything from a side alley to an interstate highway is covered, and those criteria are listed. And they don't have that in there as a means as a matter of policy in terms of either being mandatory or even desirable to have these elements designed into a roadway. It's the roadway elements that still come first in terms of the safe movement of transportation, especially vehicles. And then there's absolutely provisions for pedestrians and bicycles in there, but as a design guide, it's not a mandatory element of roadway design. And correspondingly, they have these research papers that indicate situations and guidelines for when it would be appropriate to implement complete street policies, and that goes with a substantial planning process. That is a long-term planning effort in which all of these elements are brought together: the master plan, the zoning ordinance, a transportation master plan, any kind of studies that are needed to create the kinds of studies where a developer could be assessed a pro rata portion of a design in which the cost and the design elements have been figured out ahead of time. That's how Volunteer Way got built. That's how other portions of improvements over time get built within the township. They do them by studies that set up pro rata share for developers. Without that, there is no, and this is really something that is held up in court, there's no way to assess a developer a mandatory contribution towards an improvement that would be part of your master plan unless that study's been done, unless the cost estimate is in, unless it has been assessed on a per unit basis or a per acre of development basis or a per mile of road basis. Unless that's been done, you can't really assess a developer. What the township is doing then, it's imposing that requirement on itself by having even in form of a resolution. If the resolution is in effect, that language becomes mandatory. The township's only option really is to more or less back out of the resolution at that point, to void out the resolution, because if the township has adopted and is maintaining that resolution, that language then becomes mandatory to the township. What the township's really doing is imposing it on itself. So the AASHTO design guidelines do not impose that as a mandatory feature in roadway design. It is a separate policy guideline that AASHTO puts out. And again, it's part of a larger planning process that is engaged in various levels of transportation planning.
Question, when you say do not impose that, what is the that you're referring to? The AASHTO requirements do not impose that. The that, I guess you're referring to, is some of the things that are called for some of the guidelines in complete streets?
Yeah, the publications that AASHTO's put out regarding complete streets, regarding pedestrian and bicycle provision.
Right.
That's that.
Okay.
Okay, so it's an element of design that is part of the design process, but that meaning the pedestrian and bicycle provisions, aka complete street policy, is that is not part of the mandatory design process in the AASHTO guidelines.
And you're saying that we would be legally bound to impose those if we were to accept this resolution? Because I've had other people tell me that's not true.
I can't speak legally. What I would say is that as it relates to AASHTO, as it relates to manual and uniform traffic control devices and other engineering guidelines, the word shall becomes mandatory, so that when you're an engineer sitting down to design something, or you're an engineer reviewing a plan for the planning board, for instance, as a traffic plan for the planning board, you're looking at a policy that the township has adopted, and it's using mandatory language that would basically require you as an engineer doing a review to set up requirements that a developer would have to implement in order to comply with that policy that's been adopted by the township. In order to do that, there has to be corresponding legislation from the township.
I heard what you said.
Vis-a-vis the zoning ordinance and development standards to require those things. Otherwise, there's no requirement by the developer to do those things. So the township is essentially imposing it on itself.
Yeah, when I look at this, I don't see any shell that requires a specific design criteria. It says bicycle and pedestrian ways shall be established in new construction and reconstruction project unless one or more of the following conditions. That doesn't impose any specific question. It says bicycle and pedestrian shall be established in new construction, but that doesn't impose a specific requirement. That's going to be up to the policy board. Well, listen, this has been adopted, as I mentioned, by well over 1,200 communities around the country. It's been adopted by 167 communities within the township. The New Jersey policy has it as part of it. Our own policy said that we're going to adopt it. That's the new streets, the neighborhood development plan. It's something that works, and it's something, the intent of which is to get designers to think about these other requirements. That's all it really is.
I couldn't agree more in terms of this is the wave of the future. This is the way that the township should be thinking for the future. My concern as your engineer is merely to make sure that it's implemented broadly and that it's thought out throughout the entire planning process that goes along with the master plan, the zoning ordinance, any design standards, and that has to be thought out very carefully. I'm not sure I have not read the language of the resolution, so I can't comment on it specifically with regards to, what it imposes on the township, but just what you just read to me imposes it on me as an engineer reviewing a plan to make sure the next subdivision plan, I'm just thinking of one that we reviewed very recently, in which that language would force me to change my report and impose standards for pedestrians and bicycles that may not have been imposed by the current zoning ordinance.
Except that there's nothing in here that calls out any specific standards that that must be complied with. It says shall improve conditions. It says shall accommodate cyclists. It says shall be approved by the senior manager. These are general terms. They're not specifics. So they're not requiring the planning board. They're not requiring the township to do anything specifically. And by the way, if shall is such a concern, suppose the shall is changed. Would that make it more acceptable?
This is a discussion item. That's what we're here to do.
It certainly
Rodney.
changes
Yeah.
Can I ask you?
changes the meaning of the word, for
This,
sure.
I mean, no offense, did you write this, or is this a boilerplate
No,
resolution?
what we did,
Um,
we looked through, the green team looked through a number of resolutions, and I have several of them here, from comparable communities. And they put
Okay.
together something that they thought.
So my point is that there, I don't know how to say this. In order to get the points and get credit for what you're doing here, can this be altered? Or is there certain things that they want to see in it for it to be worthwhile? In other
I
words,
suppose
to make what they're looking for.
I suppose it could be altered. I don't have anything definite that says it can't. So I think it probably could be if we've got reasonable ways to alter it.
That would be good.
I'm kind of torn, I'll be very honest with you. I'm all for public safety and doing the things and helping these folks with the green team, but we have a lot of good folks that sit on the planning board also, and they've talked to me about kind of, it takes a lot of levity away from what they can and cannot do to help in certain situations, which, as we all know, we want to bring in as much business and as much development in the town as we can. And I think that, the folks on the planning board already do a lot of these things that we're talking about here. So for us to, to handcuff ourselves into something like this is concerning. I think if maybe we could change some of the wording to soften it up a little bit, so that they are, and not necessarily the people on the zoning board, it's the engineers. When the engineers have a problem with the way it's written, it's just like our solicitor. We have to pay attention. We pay these people. We address some of the wording.
It
Some of
does
the
change,
concerns.
it does change the mandatory aspect of it. I mean, to soften that language would create a little bit more latitude, a little bit more flexibility for engineers and planners to be able to make recommendations, for instance, and not be imposing certain requirements. But this is unquestionably the direction that we should be going in terms of complete streets. There's no question about that. That's the desirable. That's the best. That's the direction we want to be moving in. It's how we get there, and that the steps are being taken cautiously, so that the township doesn't get ahead of itself.
Well, I'm certainly interested, and I'm sure the green team is interested also in getting there in the most, in the best manner. And if we can take another look at this and modify it to people's satisfaction, I have no problem with that. But I think it does. Well, first of all, it gives us the opportunity to, if we have the resolution, to get points on any grants that are written. And it is something, the complete streets policy is something that's good for the community in terms of planning, in terms of safety, in terms of accommodating all transportation users.
I have a question. How much of this is already covered in our master plan and planning and zoning?
Well, the master plan, there's been some inaccurate information coming out. I've been getting calls that page 59, people are talking about it being out of our master plan. It is not. It's out of the neighborhood redevelopment plan, and that was wrong information that was out there. I just think that at this point, this has been back and forth so much. I know that I can't support this resolution in its present form, but I do believe it needs to be brought to a vote. That's my own personal feeling. So I don't know how the rest of the committee feels on this.
Can we find out exactly what our master plan and zoning plan is in regards to these issues? Can we find that out?
Well, I don't think the master plan addresses this at all, but the neighborhood plan does. The neighborhood plan is.
No, I know that Park Road was supposed to have, according to the master plan, when Tom Palminteri was here, that was supposed to have sidewalks on both sides of the road. Okay? Now, I can get that information. I've seen it. So, where and how are we supposed to, say, well, what is the master plan of our township? What is legal for our, our engineers to consider? The area that I see is very dangerous is owned by the county and the state. So we would have to engage them also in this master plan, in this resolution. So I think.
And I believe the resolution needs to clear up. It needs to clear up the point about whether it's just Mays Landing or the entire township of Hamilton. The resolution addresses the township of Hamilton. The neighborhood plan addresses Mays Landing proper. And I think that's an issue. And I really think the only way to do that is to have a vote on this tonight and then see where it goes from there. That ends this back and forth to the planning board, and we can get some new information perhaps. Does any other members of our committee or professionals have any comments?
I got a couple of comments. This is not a planning board decision. It's our own decision.
That's correct.
It's a committee decision, so it doesn't have to go back and forth. And this resolution, the complete streets, obviously does not require the same standards for the rural areas of our township as it does for the main area. So it could be adopted as is, but you obviously would use your judgment. It says so here, and apply it where it's applicable, and it's certainly not applicable everywhere.
I don't think it says that, Rodney. I don't think it says that you can just apply it where you want to.
You are applying it where you want to, but when you're applying it, you're using judgment and sense in applying.
That's what we're doing here tonight, Rodney. That's what we're trying.
That's what the plan is encouraging doing. You don't use the same standards every place.
Listen, Judy brought up Park Road. Now, Park Road was a project that was very, very expensive. We took the road all the way down and redid it. It was a mess, okay? We all know it, all right? So we did it. I don't know what the extent was. Was there curbs done?
The curbs were done.
So if we were forced to do the sidewalks too.
We would not be.
Well, it was on a plan.
It was on, that plan. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
If we were forced to do the sidewalks too, it may have pushed that project off the books because of cost. I don't want to see we're in a point where we have to do this or we have to do that. We were able to do the project at Park Road. It turned out very nice. It is a road that goes back to Lenape Park. But again, when you're sitting up here and you're dealing with the road program, everything's dollars and cents. So when you add a tremendous amount of money to a project, that project may not get done. So I don't want to see us run into a situation where we had to do those sidewalks or we can't do the project.
Yeah,
I'd rather see it just be able to do what we can do.
And I agree with you. And amongst the things here, it says the cost of accommodations, these are exceptions where you don't need to apply that. The cost of accommodations is excessively disproportionate to the cost of a project at more than 20% of total cost. And it says where a sparse population, travel, or other factors indicating absence of need as defined by any street with a paved roadway width greater than 28 feet and less than 100 vehicles per day. So there we go. That excludes most of our township. That's part of the policy.
Bob, could you define the word for us, shall, and, how it appears in this
Certainly.
resolution?
There are two treatises which lawyers use to interpret language of statutes, Sands on statutory language and Sutherland. Both of them treat the word shall exactly the same. Shall in New Jersey law is deemed to be in the mandatory and to provide no discretion. So when the word shall is used, it means you have to do it. Or if it says shall not, you cannot do it. So the word shall is absolutely mandatory and no discretion. And no judge could interpret it any other way because the Supreme Court has established that through the use of the two treatises that I'm discussing with you. I've heard a couple people say tonight that this is non-binding. First of all, as your agenda review sheet says, I was not consulted with respect to this. So this is my first look-see at this. But my feeling is if you adopt it and it's in effect, it is binding until it's rescinded. So in a sense, you could rescind it and it would be non-binding. But if it's in effect, somebody like Kevin or somebody like Steve Philippone or other engineers for the planning and or zoning boards would say, okay, I'm looking at this roadway. What does this mean? And I can see some very sharp zoning lawyers saying, well, wait a minute. It's worthless because it's not in a zoning ordinance. And if it's not in the zoning ordinance, as Kevin has pointed out, the applicant doesn't have to follow it. But it's still a criteria that exists in the review comments of the engineers retained by our boards. So I don't know what you mean when you say it's non-binding. If it's adopted, it's binding, for whatever it says. And I'm not sure what it says.
So, well, let me tell you what the shalls that we've talked about says. One shall says, the design and development of the transportation infrastructure shall improve conditions for bicycling and walking. That's not very specific. And
It's
that's
not.
certainly something that we would try to do anyway.
It's not, Rodney,
Goes on, the
however,
next one says the design of intersections and interchanges shall accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians in a safe manner. The next one says bicycles and bikeways and walkways shall be approved by a senior manager and be documented with supporting data. That's a simple enough.
I understand that, Rodney, but I
Yeah.
heard Kevin say that AASHTO has published probably peer review documents that address these complete streets, and I would suggest that if there were even general standards in there, that would be a legitimate source for a zoning person to consult and ask for compliance. I don't know what they say, but improving, for example, the positive criteria for a zoning use variance, if it fulfills the purpose of zoning, that's one of the reasons of doing it. And if AASHTO says something like what Kevin is suggesting, and there are some standards, that could be a basis for an applicant to get a use variance where he may otherwise not fulfill the purposes of zoning. So that's a hypothetical. But Judy, to answer your question, shall means, you got to do it.
So I would recommend that we take a look at this policy or resolution and rework it so that it may be applicable and also suitable.
Well, I'm looking at the presentation of the resolution in its present form, and nothing's changed in my mind that we shouldn't take a vote on this now, but that doesn't mean that everything that all these fine folks stood up and talked about today and our professionals couldn't look at another time. But this has been brought back and forth, and it's not accurate. It's not accurate. It doesn't, the resolution doesn't represent what is actually should be in the resolution. Mays Landing proper, and not the entire township, and the other issues that were brought up by our professionals, and the word shall. It sounds like we got a lot of issues on this that need clarification, is what it sounds like to me. So, committee, how do you want to handle this? It's a discussion item. Do we want to take a vote on this now, and then this would get worked out at another date? Because in its present form, that's all I'm looking at. In its present form, I can't support the resolution, but that's only in the way it's presented now. So, and it sounds like our professionals have pretty much said, you know, given us the information we need to do that. I don't,
Well, it can be tabled, and we can work with the professionals and a lawyer to get it to a state where it is acceptable. Because I don't want to drop it. It's going to come back again. The green team needs it. I think the community needs it, and I don't think it should be dropped. This complete streets is important.
I'm not
Rodney.
saying drop it.
We're not disagreeing with you.
Okay, I didn't say you were. I'm just recommending that we table
Agreeing
it.
with the presentation of this particular resolution, not the idea of it.
All right, I got you. So I propose that we table it and try to address the concerns that have been brought out and then bring it back.
Is that a motion, Rodney?
Yes, that's the motion.
Second.
Motion to table on the floor?
So, Mr. Solicitor, what is this, if you table this, should we vote on the resolution as it stands to be done with this particular resolution, or is tabling it enough to,
You can,
regardless of whether we vote down or up here, it's coming back. We fully realize that, and that's not the issue here.
I
just
can
wanna
only
make sure
deal,
we do this.
I can only deal with what's on the table. And what's on the table is a motion to table this for a future meeting. If that motion is defeated, a motion could be brought to accept it or to deny it. And that would be a separate motion. But right now, officially, it's been laid on the table as a motion to table by Rodney and seconded by Judy. That is the only issue before you right now. But you're asking me, what if that failed? Then someone else could make a different motion. And the different motion would be to either accept it or reject it.
In favor,
Which, by the way, now, again, I haven't studied this, but if it were rejected today, it could be put on a future agenda.
That's kind of my point.
So doesn't that mean that
This resolution, as it sits, is unacceptable to our professionals, to our planning board. If we defeat this one here, then we can bring back another one, and I would like to make the suggestion that our solicitor be included in review before it's brought before us, so that, and even our engineer, so that we can work out all the bugs, all the language, and have something that's without question.
well, I think we,
That fulfills the requirement on page 59 that the Township Committee and the Planning Board work together on this. So this would bring the Township Committee into it from their.
I could confer
that was not on 59.
the
59
solicitor for the planning
recommended
board
adoption of a complete street
and
policy.
see what his bases for his opinions were.
well, we have a motion on to table this, and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes,
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
No.
Mr. Silva?
No.
Mayor Kurtz?
No.
Proactive.
2 to 3, motions defeated. Any other action wish to be taken by the committee with respect to the resolution in its present form?
I will bring it before, I guess, the lawyer and the professionals, and see if we can rework it and bring it to a form that's more acceptable. But this is not something that I think should be dropped.
It's not going to be dropped, Rodney. I think
All
you're
right.
missing the point here.
No, I got the point.
The point is that we want it done the right way. If it's done the right way and doesn't put us in a bad situation, then it'll be fine. Listen, we want to see the green team get their points. We want to see this done, but we also don't want to put ourselves in a bad situation. And when I have two professionals in front of me telling me that the word shall is not a good thing to have in any document, it becomes a mandate. The state mandates us to do enough stuff as it is, and it costs this township a lot of money.
Well, I'd like to
Yeah,
hear
but
that
it's
from a
6 to
lawyer,
1
and the lawyer
in
hasn't looked
relation
at
to
it
the
yet, at
other.
least our lawyer has.
For instance, if we agree to go and work it and eliminate those things, it's the same thing.
I think that's the road we're headed down. At least that's my impression.
Well, we've discussed this, we've had a vote, and I want to
Hold
move
on.
the agenda along. And if we were going to go now to 3B, authorize funding for 5% match for fire safety grant, Municipal Fire Department and Weymouth Fire Department. Mike?
Mr. Mayor, Mitzpah and Weymouth have successfully received a grant. They applied and received a grant, and they've asked that we put up the 5% match, which would be $12,086. And for that, they get $245,000 worth of equipment. I think it's mostly air packs
Yeah,
and associated equipment to that.
that's very good.
So it's a great
Committee,
opportunity.
what's your pleasure?
I move that we authorize funding of a 5% match for fire safety grant to Mitzvah Fire Department and Weymouth Fire
I
Department.
second it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, roll call, please.
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
4A, public hearing, adoption of ordinances. Ordinance number 1864-2017, an ordinance authorizing the sale of Lot 1 in Block 240 as shown on the tax map of the Township of Hamilton and granting to the owner or owners of said real property contiguous to same the right of prior refusal to purchase such land in the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, and State of New Jersey. Mike, can you give us a little
Yes.
background on this?
Mr. Mayor, it's a 2.61 acre parcel of property off of Elwood Road. The zoning is FA 70, and the minimum bid would be $2,100. And it would be for bid to the contiguous property owners.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this item?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Rita?
No.
Can you do a roll call? Oh, we don't
Need a
need it.
motion to
Yeah,
adopt
okay.
first.
I make a motion, we adopt ordinance 1864-2017, authorizing the sale of one in Block 240 as shown in tax map in the Township of Hamilton.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Item 4B, ordinance number 1865-2017, an ordinance amending Exhibit A, Section 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 66 of the Code of the Township of Hamilton, providing for the maximum number of employees, Public Works Department. Mike?
Yes, sir, Mayor, this ordinance does not change the total number of employees. It creates a supervisory position and deletes the laborer position. If approved, we would be able to post in-house for a possible promotion.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public wish to speak on this?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And any motion and a second? Let's see here. Anyone have a motion on this?
I move to adopt the motion.
Okay, we have a
I'll
motion.
second.
And Roger, we have a second?
Maybe I missed something. I heard a motion in a second to close the public, but I didn't hear a vote on it.
No vote.
Vote on it?
Yeah, he made the motion, Ronnie did.
Was there a vote read?
Yeah,
Yeah. All in favor?
Okay, I just
yeah, it's okay.
You gotta be quick.
made a motion.
Rita?
Okay, this is on the adoption. Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and adopted.
Award of bids, contracts, change orders. 5A, resolution authorizing first-year option of bid number 2015-02 solid waste collection services contract to Waste Management of New Jersey Incorporated, January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, not to exceed $607,596.
Well, we recommend approval. It's the first renewal of the contract,
Yeah,
three-year
we did-
contract.
yeah, okay.
Move
the
to
resolution.
adopt?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, could we get a roll call on this?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
5B, resolution authorizing purchase of a Yodak barricade system with trailer from Garden State Highway Products Incorporated, not to exceed $20,000. Before you go into that, Mike, I just want to mention I'm familiar a little bit with this. Our police department and our public works department, especially in things like the Halloween parade, needs these barricades, which they fill with water. Unfortunately, in these times, you have to do these things. And I believe, Chief, we didn't have the amount necessary that we could have used for the Halloween parade and maybe some other events. So this is very important. Brett, do you have any comment on this, or are you okay?
Currently, we borrow 50% of our Yodak barricades from the county. Halloween parade was that issue that we need to close more roads last 2 years.
Right.
So we budgeted for additional 30 Yodak barricades.
Okay, thank you. And I did notice this year at the Halloween parade, right up around Main Street, there were some issues where the crowd that was so heavy right there, especially near the judging stand, that they were encroaching upon the floats themselves, some trying to get candy, some trying to give it out. And of course, it's all about safety with the kids that night. So this is something that we definitely need to do. Committee?
I make a resolution authorizing the purchase of a Yodak barricade system with the trailer from Garden State Highway Products not to exceed $20,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, could we get a roll call?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carry.
Award of bids and contract orders. And we're on C now. Resolution approving change order 1, a final for the Leapy Track Drainage Basin remediation, a net decrease of $23,323.98 as recommended by Robert Smith, alternate engineer. This is a decrease. I know we're going to.
Can you read that again?
No, we don't
We'd always
vote.
move that resolution.
Yeah, I know. It sounded good, didn't it?
We'd always move that resolution quickly.
Yeah,
Yes.
before they change their minds.
I move it.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carry.
5D, resolution authorizing proposed agreement amendment between Fire Grants Help and the Township of Hamilton. Mike?
Yes, sir, Mayor. The rescue squad approached us and asked if they could join in that grant application. The charge for it was $250 per company, so it would just add $250 to the grant writer.
Oh, okay.
And there's a memorandum of understanding later on the agenda as well.
Understood.
Goes with it.
Committee?
Move it.
So moved.
Move that authorize and propose agreement amendment between the Fire Grants Help and the Township of Hamilton.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Shanker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva? Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carry.
5D, I'm sorry, E. Resolution awarding contract for licensed plumber services to Falaska Mechanical Incorporated, bid number 2017-11, on an as-needed basis, not to exceed $25,000.
I'll move that resolution.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Shanker?
Abstain. They were a former employee of mine.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 abstention, motion carries.
F, resolution awarding contract, let me see what we got. I already did that one.
No, it's F.
That's for
No, you
janitorial,
have-
didn't, yeah.
Oh, we're on F.
Yeah, resolution awarding contract for janitorial services for the Township of Hamilton. Buildings to Action Janitorial Incorporated, bid number 2017-10 for January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018, in the amount of $42,000.
I'll move that resolution.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second,
Got a
Rita?
question on
Yeah,
it?
go ahead, Ronnie.
And I may have asked you this, and if I did, I forgot the answer. Did we consider this as a veterans set-aside?
No, the last time we bid it, we did. We haven't received any requests from veterans that they have this business that we post on the sign.
Well, are we just waiting for requests and not being a little more proactive? And one time, we were advertising that on the boards
On the
outside.
board.
Pardon me?
It should be on the board.
For
Should stay on
veterans?
it.
For
Stay on
veterans?
the board.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
And Mike, am I correct in the fact that wasn't there some additional janitorial services that we asked them to do and they didn't increase the price in order for us to do it? Is that,
That's exactly correct.
the 2 items or something down below?
Yes. Yeah, we added Public Works, the new room in the Public Works building, and I forget off the top of my head.
Downstairs, wasn't it?
The downstairs gym, yes, the workout
Okay.
equipment.
Very good. Committee?
Thank you.
I'll move the,
We moved it already.
oh, okay, sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item G, resolution awarding contract for tree and stump removal and tree trimming services to RPM Landscaping Contractor LLC, bid number 2017-08, on an as-needed basis not to exceed $3,000.
I'll move that resolution.
Second?
Motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item 6, consent agenda. We're looking for a motion to approve items A through N
I have
in
a
the consent
question.
agenda.
I have a question.
Sure, Judy, go right ahead.
What is 3, VR gaming?
VR Gaming is in the Hamilton Mall. It's virtual reality? Is that the right
Virtual
word? Where
reality?
you wear the goggles? Yeah, something like that.
Oh, okay, and, okay, so it's nothing that involves a game of chance?
No,
No?
no.
Okay. VR gaming,
Good, John.
okay.
Okay, committee?
Would you go A through
Go
what,
ahead,
John?
A through N.
A through N.
And, yeah.
Make
I'll
the
move that.
necessary motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item 7, personnel. Authorization to advertise in-house for a regular full-time clerk in Public Works. Committee?
I make that motion.
Can Mike?
Mike, could you comment on that,
Oh, no,
just in
it's
case not everybody's
Due to an
familiar with it?
upcoming retirement.
What's that?
It's due to an upcoming retirement.
Yeah. Okay.
Have it ready.
So we're gonna have still the
Still
same
move it.
number.
And Roger moved it, and we, second?
Is the retirement as of Jan 1?
We
Second.
have a
if
motion and a
nobody's
second. Rita?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second.
Rodney?
Thank you. Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
And personnel B, appoint Adrian Carmen as a temporary part-time clerk in the tax collector's office until a regular full-time clerk is hired, effective 11/15/2017 at $16 per hour.
I'll move that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item C, appoint Albert Jewett as temporary full-time electrical inspector / subcode official at $30 per hour, effective 11/27/2017, not to exceed 11 months.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita?
Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item 8, approvals. Minutes of October 16th, 2017, regular meeting.
Make the necessary motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain. Item B, payrolls and bills. Bill list totaling $5,786,354.97.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rita, could we have a roll call on that?
Yes. Mr. Gishard?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mr. Schenker?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
And Mayor Kurtz?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Reports. Our administrator.
Yes, just one thing I wanted to mention. The county has requested, and we have a permit in place, that we lower the lake between 2 and 3 feet so they can start the inspections. So the lake is on its way down,
Okay.
and it's according to our permit.
And did that information go out on the Nixle?
Went out twice on the Nixle.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
And the
At the
reason,
inspection for the one doing
The dam,
the work on the dam?
for the dam, yes.
Okay.
I was going to ask what it was for. Okay.
Anything else, Mike?
No, sir.
Okay. Our solicitor, Bob.
Pleased to announce I have nothing to report.
All right, Bob, thank you. Our engineer, Kevin.
Sir, Mr. Mayor, you have my report, but I did just want to highlight that the housing demolition specs are done for the one that we didn't need the environmental report on. The environmental report's underway for the other two, so as soon as that's done, those specs will be done as well. So we're ready to go out for bid. It's just a question of whether we want to keep those together or and go out for one bid package or separate them out. That's a decision not for tonight, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
that
it's something
it's ready to
coming
go. I'm just giving you an update on
Sure.
those specs. And that was it. I have some contracts for the road program for signature of the mayor. They've been executed. We're ready to issue a notice to proceed for that as well.
Okay, and I hope to do that for you if it's not too much in between our executive session.
That would be fine.
That
That'd
way
be
we-
great. Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
We'll wait, John.
Okay, thanks. Township committee members. I'd like to start, first I'll start off on a real positive note. The Historic Preservation Commission is once again presenting the Township of Hamilton's tree lighting ceremony in War Memorial Park. It'll be done on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, November 25th. There's going to be cookies, hot chocolate, caroling. This is a free event, folks. It always brings a lot of people. I ask everybody that can or never been to it before to come out and see what our Public Works Department does lighting that park. It's beautiful every year. The singing and the carolers and the hot chocolate and cookies, it all is a hometown feeling, and we certainly would like everybody to come out for that. And the only other comment I have, this past Tuesday, our country has gone through another voting cycle. Some people refer to it as silly time. Accusations fly, negative and positive comments are made. However, the final result was in the voters' hands inside the privacy of a voting booth, where they exercised their constitutional right to choose. That process has taken place, and now we move on. The hopes are that these 5 seats are filled with elected officials who do the work of all the people. Not every decision from this dais can be perfect for all concerned, but I believe that they can be fair to all concerned. That's the end of my comments. I'd like to go on to Art.
Thanks, John. First of all, I'd like to thank and congratulate the Merchants Association and the Rotary for another wonderful Halloween parade. I had a great time. I don't know about you guys, but I had fun. It's great to see all the kids out there on the floats. They get all excited, and when candy's involved, I get excited too. The only other comment I'd like to make tonight is to the folks here at the Green Team, and I want to be very clear. We do appreciate everything you do, and I don't want you to leave here tonight thinking that we don't. But we have a responsibility to the township to make sure that things are done appropriately. We're all for what you're trying to do. But unfortunately, I've had a long history throughout my career sitting across the table from attorneys and other professionals. And we pay them a lot of money, and when they advise me, I have to listen. I came here tonight on the fence about it, and I feel as though after hearing their comments that we can put this in a better formula, a better wording, and we can get this thing done. So I just want you to understand that I'm not against it. I need to see this a little cleaner, that's all. Okay? Thank you.
Roger.
Art's correct. Talked about public safety. We spend 60% of our budget on public safety. And that goes to many factors, to the volunteer fire department, rescue squad, police department. And public safety is something I don't think any of us would give up on. Now, you made a mention earlier this morning, or earlier this evening when you spoke about distracted people, and it is a big problem out there. I see it every day, I'm sure we all do. Whether they're texting, whether they're on the phone, whether they're just preoccupied, whether they're upset about the detours, which have upset a lot of people in this community, whether there's impatience at the light waiting to make a turn on River Road for 3 turns of the light, people get aggravated and they do crazy things. I'm sure the police department's been stopping a lot of people over the last couple of weeks, and I guess the chief, you would attest to that. So it's disheartening when that happens. And I think none of us want to see anybody injured. The shame of it is we have so much traffic in our community today. And years ago, it was proposed that they use the Route 54 bypass to get a lot of this commercial traffic to go out 54 down to the pike and come straight down. Unfortunately, that never took hold. And I still think about it's something we can work on if we work hard enough on it, because I think some of the surrounding communities would go for it also. The difficulty comes is I've never seen more traffic that I've seen in the last year or so. Areas that never had those problems. I can't even get out the end of my street now onto Mays Landing, Summers Point Road, and it's very difficult. So I do understand the level of frustration you have. And I think even when you look at the bicyclist, that's very difficult. I mean, a lot of times they want to get out and exercise and enjoy themselves. It's difficult on Main Street. I understand that. And I agree with Art, and I think a lot of the comments that were made here tonight were balanced. And I think in all of us trying to do the right thing, I believe we will get to that point. And I think the work that is done on the green team is spectacular.
Absolutely.
And I know it's difficult when you don't make headway, but a lot of times when you look at the availability, not everybody, every time you apply for a grant, do you get it? I know for years when I worked in the federal sector and I worked in public housing, year after year I'd put in grants and grants and never get them. And I wondered why. It's because there was a pecking order in there. But if you have everything in order, I think with the support you'll get, not only from Township Committee, but the Planning Board, you'll do well with it. The other thing I wanted to say tonight, I had the occasion October the 28th to attend the rededication of the Historical Society building. And at that day, it was a Saturday, they dedicated a plaque to Dottie Kinsey, who most of us knew her as a well-known historian and just had all the information when you needed to get some information about the history of this community and surrounding areas. It was a nice event. It was well attended. Art, I agree with you. One of the things that I always liked about the Halloween parade is how polite our young children are. Whether they come up to get popcorn or candy, every one of them always says thank you. And that's something that I thought was missing in some areas, because a lot of times it's just take and grab. And even at trick or treat at the house, I've noticed that, so it's good. Rodney, next year, Veterans Day celebration, I think we should have it in Florida. It was so cold. It was so cold on Friday. I think all of us wanted to just run to our cars, put the heaters on high. And it was a shame because it was a great program.
Will you pay the airfare?
Let me tell you something.
I'll go.
Yeah,
I
me
hear
too.
you. It was a great program, and I think the shame of it was that it was extremely cold. And when you see the chairman, his legs chattering and his hands, and he couldn't move, I knew it was cold. So, but otherwise, it was a notable event. So that's it, Mayor.
Great. Judy?
Well, I would like to note that Rodney has done a marvelous job on this complete streets. He's really working very hard with the green team and is very, very sincere. And I feel as though we can somehow make it work, put it together so it's acceptable for all of us concerned. And I think it'll be a great asset. I do have something very, very sad to say. One of my dear friends in the skating business, and he's a world, he actually was nationally ranked skater. was driving down Route 40 and saw a woman being beaten to death or being beaten. And he got out to help. And he got cold cocked and went straight down to the ground. And yesterday, he died. It's a very, very sad commentary that someone who had, very, upbeat type person wanted to help somebody and was killed doing it. So, sorry to say that. His name is John Charlton. I don't know if it'll be in the newspaper again, but someone from Sicklerville knocked him right out. And when his head hit the pavement, it just destroyed his brain. He only had 2% chance of recovery. So, pray for his family. They live here at Mays Landing. And we will be doing a fundraiser for them. I think Mr. Lafferty, Randy Lafferty, is their attorney. So, okay.
Thank you, Judy. Rodney?
Yeah, that is very sad.
Very sad.
I'd just like to just quickly second John's comments about the election, and I want to second Art's comments. And I'm glad to hear that we ended on a positive note. We recognize that that the Complete Streets concept is an important one, and that we'll work together to get that moving. So that's good. I was a little bit surprised to find out that Gale Avenue is now open.
It is.
I mean, it seems to me that when we closed it was for 3 months. It was supposed to be, wasn't it?
Done sooner.
How in the world did that happen? 2 months ahead of time. Is that because of
We
you?
getting money back then?
Counted that.
Well, that's-
They didn't finish the work and somebody
No, they
moved all
stopped
the
it.
Kevin, take all the
They
credit.
stopped it
Go
for
right
the
ahead.
winter to go start again in the spring.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, but I know the resident over there, and he was tickled about it, and that sure is great, because, I've argued and will try to do what can be done to speed some of these projects up. Of course, a lot of the reason for they're so slow is because of state regulations and whatnot, and that's something that needs to be brought to our state officials' attention. But it's really, really great to see a project finish ahead of time like that. I just want to second Roger's comments on Veterans Day. It was cold out there, but I certainly happy to see the people that came. We appreciate it. I think we would have had, actually, I think there were two problems. It was cold, and also it was held on a Friday, and there are many people that still had to work.
Yep.
So that's something that we have to consider next year in Veterans Day. Also, a note of possible good news, the VFW is very excited about and is planning to go on contract for an electronic sign in front of the VFW, and what that would do would get rid of that farm of ugly signs that are out there now. But we're working with the township to see if we can get that done, so that'll be great. Also, just a couple of comments on the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. One, they had sponsored a dementia discussion in the library, and unfortunately, I missed it. I don't know if anybody here attended it, but it's certainly an appropriate topic, and I'm sure one that was very well received. Also, the Oakcrest, in fact, the Oakcrest principal, Mr. Reyna, stopped by the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee to tell them that he's very much interested in getting high school students involved with civic activities and with senior citizens. So we're going to see what we can do to work together to get some projects going. So I thought that was very positive. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to make one final comment before we go into public comment. I want to really thank the Green Team and the members of the Green Team for coming here. I do believe that there will be something that will be worked out here. It's just the resolution in the present form really couldn't be couldn't go forward. But I think this is something that we can really work out. I also know that a couple members mentioned my accident that I had in front of my business. It's been over 3 years now. I'm still having some issues with some things over that accident. But some of the things that you can't look at it like that is the crossing light that's at that corner. This is just something I thought I'd bring to light. The crossing light at that corner, the one that has the little man on it that walks, that's been knocked down. I think I have a record of 35 times, and once it went into my window and didn't break it. The other time it went through my window. We've been petitioning the state about the timing on that was wrong, because people go out and they have a hard time crossing. And then one day this year, the state showed up and the guy comes in and says, "We're moving the light." And I thought he was going to say, it was your accident or something like that. And he said, turns out that light was put in the wrong place when it was first put in.
Oh, my goodness.
So they moved it 6 feet. And from where it is, it's the guy from the state had no other explanation. But it just goes to show you that sometimes something that's there was wrong for that long, and then the state all of a sudden realizes the problem. But it was corrected. They're looking into traffic calming devices. They're looking into other things that go in line with this Safe Streets program. And I think all of it will come together and work. I really do. But thanks again for the Green Team for coming out. I'd like to open it up for public comment. And is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Sure, come on up, please. Yeah, you still need to go over there.
Can I identify yourself?
Oh, Michael, do you want to go? Well, this has been a learning experience. Most of us on the team are not elected officials or politicians, and the process of putting a policy into being was brand new to us. So, good learning experience. But going forward, I'd like to invite everyone here to participate in the spring. The Green Team is going to have a walking audit through the downtown Mays Landing area. We are going to have the fellow who was here from Cross County Connections to lead that for us because he's done that before. But like Mr. Silva, you had a really great memory of that Route 54 bypass, and perhaps working together.
And we could probably work with Buena Vista Township because they've been trying to push that also.
So the next step of this is our audit and then making a plan. I mean, I understand it doesn't happen overnight, and I wanted it to be done like last week.
Yeah.
But it'll happen when it happens, and I hope that when we plan that, all of our officials here and all of the people who are participate in our township will come out and add to that, because it's a walking audit and everyone who's involved adds to that information. And I think especially the people in front of me have a lot of experience with and a lot of good ideas.
And your business people too.
And our business people, yeah. Definitely. So anyway, I appreciate this experience. And
well, I think the important thing that all of us finds comforting is that we're able to at least debate things in a sensible way and engage everybody so everyone's points are heard. And I think it's something the mayor said. Sometimes look, I've been on the downside of 4-1 decisions over the last 10 years a few times, but everyone is entitled to their vote. And it's interesting that sometimes people do have differences of opinion. And it doesn't mean it's negative. It means it's just different.
Well, I think I agree with our deputy mayor that we really are all saying the same thing. And the learning experience for me is that I basically just took, I'm sorry, I don't mean to say I, took a policy that was in use with a town that's similar. We didn't really go through it, and we were hoping that our planning board would change it so that it would work for us. But that, there was some breakdown in communication.
Well, I
Now
think
we
the
know.
important thing is it's going to be worked out.
Good,
We'll get there.
good. I'm really glad. Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public like to speak? Oh, come on up. Susan, is it right?
Susan, yeah.
Yep.
Like I said, there's 8 counties and 138 municipalities that have passed this. And I'm sure that there's wording in these documents that we can figure out. It would have been, since we've been talking about this for almost a year, it would have been nice to get feedback ahead of time that these were concerns. So we wouldn't, have to spend all this time going over it. Because, I mean, I'm open to something in the taking out shalls. It's not rocket science. People are doing it, right? So I'm open, and I'm hoping, it'd be, if we get feedback and maybe communicate better, and maybe we can have input, also more input. That'd be great. All right?
I will
All
continue.
right, thank you,
my
Susan.
time to the Green Team.
Well, that's appreciated.
I donated
Thank you.
about $3,600 of legal time in the development of their incorporation documents at no cost to the governing body and at no cost to you. If they'll permit me to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. That's
Thank
a
you,
great
Bob.
move. Thank you very much. And the green team, I'm sure we could use
Much
that.
appreciated, yes.
I figure we can figure it out, right? We're bright people.
Couple smart people like us.
We will figure it out.
Hey, Ingrid, can I
Got
ask
our
you a
best man
question?
on it.
Does Sustainable New Jersey have a booth over at the League of Municipalities?
Yes.
So I'll stop there tomorrow.
And we
Okay.
are still certified. I think it's, it lasts
They-
for 3
they
years,
kicked
even
out.
our point to another one. We do have to redo stuff.
Sure. Thank you, Susan.
And I'd just like to invite the public to the Green Team meeting. It's open to the public, and we're looking forward to getting more participation. The meeting is the first Thursday of the month in Conference Room A at 6:30. So come on aboard.
Jack?
Percy Laurel Street in the beautiful community of Laureldale. Ba-boom. Hi, Bob.
Could you speak up?
Can't hear each other.
I lost half of my voice with a bronchitis attack way back, so I don't project very well anymore, which is, everybody is astounded by that, and I'm very happy about it. Route 54. Mayor Pritchard and I, we kind of smile about that. Every time you say something about Route 54 as a bypass, together we sat on a committee in Atlantic Cape Community College in 1985 when that was discussed, and the state said they would take it under consideration. And apparently they're still considering, but they don't work timely. So
Well, it's been in the forefront of a lot of people's minds all that time. It just goes to show there hasn't been any support. And obviously, if you even look at the traffic coming down Malaga Road, Malaga Road alone takes a beating up there, even though there's no passing, we got double lines, we lowered the speed limit, you did the work up there, right, Kevin?
Sure.
And
That's-
people just do whatever they want.
And that's what they're
I know
using
the
as the
police have been
bypass.
up there giving out tickets, so.
But to get to this Complete Streets program, and I know you're aware that I'm an advocate of Complete Streets in many forms.
Sidewalks specifically.
Well, that and other things. But it was sent over to the planning board for discussion. And it came back to the governing body with all negative responses. I was one of those who voted no. I didn't vote against Complete Streets. I voted against the venue. As far as I was concerned, that's not the proper venue. Right here is the proper venue, because you make the decisions about the overall condition of the streets and sidewalks throughout the entire municipality. It only comes to the planning board in the event that there's going to be some sort of a change. A developer wants to do something different. If you're going to pave Park Road, the planning board has no jurisdiction over that. You have the complete jurisdiction. If you're going to pave Malaga Road, we have no jurisdiction over that. But if somebody's going to develop a brand new road then we have, the planning board has the, should not say we, I'm only a member of it. They have the jurisdictions of the developmental ordinance to create that. We have, at the planning board level, in the developmental ordinance, a complete street policy. A lot of people don't realize that. But it only concerns certain portions of the municipality. It doesn't concern Weymouth or Mispert or Laureldale. The zoning is much too different than that. So you have the jurisdiction over that, so that I did not feel that the venue was correct for that decision. Concerning the ordinance, you take the word shall and you put should. It goes from mandatory to another decision. You take out the word Mays Landing, you put it in the Township of Hamilton. You've essentially corrected the ordinance. And you may have some other little flavor you want to put in there, but just take the words out, change the words. You have the best attorney in the state of New Jersey. Hi, Bob. I was one of you were one of my first appointments there, John.
You and Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie and I, we made the.
1991.
Oh, God Almighty! Whew, time flies when you're having fun, right? But you have the plus the fact that a resolution in itself does not overpower an ordinance. Planning board works by ordinances; they don't work by resolutions. So the ordinance is going to supersede what the resolution you're going to do here. So you make yours less persuasive than what the ordinance calls for. So it's not that difficult to do. So carry on.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else in the public wish to speak? Jim, come on up.
John, I have a question about the CLG. I know our board has one, but what about the other boards? Do you know that the zoning board has their CLG, or
For what board?
zoning board, planning? Do you know if they have their CLG like we have ours? Certified
Okay.
local
Yes,
government?
the Historic Commission.
Yeah. What about the other boards?
Well, that requirement was only for the Historic Commission.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And they have that status.
No, I thought all the boards had to
No,
be.
it was the Historic Commission.
Okay.
Certified Local Government is what that stands for.
Yeah.
And they got that designation already.
Okay. All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, no, thank you, Jim. Any other member of the public wish to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Abstain. Number 11, adjourn to executive session. Rita?
Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting be adjourned to an executive session to discuss the following matter, which is exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. Santor gravel pit litigation update, litigation, attorney-client privilege. Be it further resolved that the governing body may reconvene in public session and confirm the results of the executive session if there is a majority consensus for action to be taken on the matter tonight.
Thank you.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
And we're adjourned, folks. We're going to adjourn to executive session.